Hi everyone, this is Bree Luna with Reading Rev, and today we are going to look at class data from a 5th grade group and determine if they need any parts of the Reading Rev program. So let's get started. Step number 1, you are going to give the multisyllabic word inventory, and by 5th grade you do want to give part 1 and part 2. You can do them in 2 separate sessions if you'd like, but remember that this is a Tier 1 3rd grade program. So my expectation is that most 5th graders by this point, if they've been given structured phonics instruction, then they should be well into part 2, and I should possibly even just have part of my class needing this program. So by 5th grade, this is a remediation program, or it is a program for students who have not yet had structured phonics. If you have a student who misses the first 5, then you would stop administering the multisyllabic word inventory and you would give them the single syllable word inventory. Okay, so now I'm going to grade my students' assessments, and I'm going to use the analysis form to see exactly which patterns they are falling down at. And I'm going to then categorize my entire class based on the patterns that are in order in the program. So I'm going to write down the name of any student who misses that word, and you can see that in some of the students, look at our controlled vowels. Those students just missed the UR word. So it might not even be that they need all of the R controlled vowels, they just tended to fall down on that word. So another really important thing to keep in mind for this is that this is just one snapshot, right? So maybe they have some of these words memorized, maybe they're missing the UR word because it was unfamiliar to them. So you can also really look at their writing samples, their day-to-day class written work, and glean some patterns from that as well. So there might be a student that does consistently miss R controlled vowels. So you can do this as really a systematic way to look at patterns, but keep in mind that you might want to also take a look at some of the students' written work in general to see if it's not a spelling test or not just a single word for that vowel team, if they can still, if they still have it mastered or not. So now I'm going to use my class instruction guide or my analysis to see where I should begin whole group instruction, or if perhaps I can just use this program for the small group targeted instruction. So based on this group of 5th graders, most of these students did a really good job with short vowels and consonant clusters, blends, digraphs, and 1 + 1 + 1 rule. So it was just really a handful of students that needed that. However, I do want to make sure that I'm reviewing closed syllables because that is such an important concept for later on more complicated patterns. So my plan for this group is I would just do 1 week to review closed syllables and short vowels and all of those consonant patterns. I would then do the second week, week 2, I would review open syllables. You can see that no one really missed open syllables in the part 1, but then a couple of students missed open syllables when they are more complex patterns in the second half of the scope and sequence. So again, I want to make sure that I really hit on closed and open syllables because that information or that knowledge is very important to more complex patterns. I'll show you a slide about that in just a minute. I also had a handful of students that missed some of the magic E syllables. It didn't seem like they missed all of the magic E, but they just were having some long versus short vowel confusion. So I want to make sure that I spend a week talking about those 2 patterns of long vowels. Then, if you take a look, 11 out of my students, this is almost half of my class, did miss the doubling pattern. So I'm going to spend a week really going through that doubling pattern And the neat part is that I can relate that to the closed and open syllables that I just got done reviewing. So you have to understand closed and open syllables to understand when you double that middle consonant or not. And so it is a great refresh to do those two patterns and then jump into doubling. I would then spend my fourth week reviewing all of the predictable vowel teams. I had 10 students fall down on predictable vowel teams, but as you can see by the parentheses, most of them were the IGH. There was just a handful of, or just a couple kids that missed other patterns. So I would just go ahead and take a week reviewing what predictable vowel teams are. I would check in with the kids that are needing R controlled vowels and consonant LE, but I would not take class time to teach or reteach those patterns because most of my class already has it. So that would be targeted small group instruction. Okay, so then we take a look at part 2 of the Reading Rev program. And for this one, you can see 15, well over half of the students missed unpredictable vowel teams at some capacity. So I am going to want to do some whole group instruction here. I'm going to break those up and do a couple per week instead of 1 week at a time because I don't think that they all missed all of them. I think they just need a refresher. So I'm going to do that for week 5. I'm going to review IE, EA, and possibly OO, depending on how they do. Then I'm going to spend week 6 reviewing the other 2 suffix rules. You can see only 2 students missed the drop, the E suffix pattern, but I'm going to go ahead and review that because I'm reviewing the other 2, and then I'm going to explicitly teach change Y to I. So that is week 6. Then I'm going to spend another week finishing up the unpredictable vowel teams and then moving on to hard and soft C and G. I'm going to do a review week for that and explicitly teach trigraphs, which 13 students needed. I also noticed that a lot of the students fell down in the words that had morphology and that were 3 or more syllables. So I'm going to make sure that I am still teaching morphology, and I'm going to probably give a morphology assessment so I know exactly what my students know and don't know if I need to go back and review some of those morphemes. And I'm also going to make sure that I'm teaching some of the advanced syllable patterns. Step 5 is I want to make sure that I'm tuning in to those students that were in the boxes or in the patterns that I didn't have a need for whole group instruction. So just because I'm not teaching at whole group, it doesn't mean that I'm missing those kids. I know that they need those gaps filled. So I'm going to do some analysis. I also had a handful of students that had concerning enough assessments. You can see this one, really they're not capturing all of the sounds. So there might be some phoneme grapheme correspondence or sound symbol correspondence issues. There might be some phonemic awareness or phonological awareness deficits. They are mixing up some of their vowels. They're mixing up long versus short vowels. So I'm concerned enough about this student that I'm not going to just focus on these patterns for encoding or spelling. I'm going to make sure that I check in on their decoding and their phonological awareness. So with this group of students, I'm keeping in mind that I'm only teaching really for 9 to 10 weeks. That's really quarter 1. So I should be able to get through the entire Reading Rev program for what my students need whole group in the first quarter. And then that's great news because then I can really free up for some more advanced phonics or more advanced morphology. But I am going to make sure that I'm really tuning into these students for tier 2 instruction. And I also wanted to keep in mind that I have 4 students that did an almost perfect pretest. And so those 4 students, how am I going to make sure that I am challenging them, that I'm finding great vocabulary words, higher level words when we're talking about these patterns to keep them engaged. And I also might have them have some other alternative activities when students are doing additional practice. These students obviously don't need that. They did almost 100% on the pretest. Okay, so one final shout out that even though my data didn't really show that I needed to teach closed and open syllables based on this group's needs, I want to make sure that I do, because understanding closed and open syllables determines pronunciation. It also determines spelling. So in many words, whether you're going to double that middle consonant or double the end consonant before you add a suffix, you have to understand closed and open syllables to determine that. It also is hugely grateful, I think I just said that, but hugely grateful for adding suffixes, and it's impactful for other syllable types like consonant LE. So no matter what my data shows, I'm still going to spend 2 weeks reviewing closed and open syllables. Okay, so here is my plan for this group, and like I said, it is really just a Q1 review for them. So week 1, I'm going to do closed syllables. I'm going to review all of those little patterns within that week. I'm going to do open syllables and magic E in week 2. I'm going to stop and really teach thoroughly the doubling pattern. I had a lot of students needing that, but within that week, I'm also doing vowel intensives where I'm tuning in to short versus long vowels. Plays perfectly with that pattern. Week 4, I'm going to review all of the predictable vowel teams. Week 5, I'm going to review the other 2 suffix rules. And week 6, I'm going to dive into unpredictable vowel teams. And you can see that I have each of these for 2 days. I'm really going to tune into my students' ability and also their formative assessments as I'm teaching, because what that first test showed me is that most of my students struggled with IE but were okay with EA. So I'm going to really make sure that as I'm teaching this week, I'm giving emphasis on what they need. However, I want to make sure that I'm also globally reviewing similar patterns. Week 7, I finish up unpredictable vowel teams. Week 8, I do diphthongs. Week 9, I would do trigraphs. And keeping in mind that each one of these weeks, I'm giving a phonics check-in on Friday, and that phonics check-in is going to give me the information of who got it, who mastered it, and who still needs some practice or reteaching. So I'm always using that phonics check-in, not so much as a grade, but to drive the next week's instruction. Did they get it? Do I need to spend more time on unpredictable vowels, or are we great? And then I also noticed with this group that most of them, or a lot of them, were falling down with 3-syllable words. So I would do an advanced phonics pattern with that. This is not included in the Reading Rev Phonics Spelling and Morphology 3rd grade program, but it will be available for the advanced phonics patterns or advanced word work coming soon. And the other thing that you need to key in on is if you're just teaching this from Unit 1 on, then you can be really systematic about morphology and irregular instruction. It's all embedded or built in. But if I'm combining or if I'm skipping weeks, I want to make sure that my students do have those morphemes mastered or do have those irregular word patterns mastered. So you could give the morphology assessment and say, hey, I'm not teaching consonant LE week, but I do want to make sure that I'm hitting on able and ibble, which are the two morphemes that week. So I may need to do some additional instruction for morphemes or irregular words that were embedded, but now I need to tease that out a little bit more. These are the advanced word study units. They are currently available in the Reading Rev VIP vault. So if you're a VIP member, you already have access to these. As soon as we get these all complete and compiled, then they will be available at the Reading Rev, the normal Reading Rev website shop as well. We are also about 2/3 of the way done with our advanced morphology unit. So keep checking back to the Reading Rev website and checking in about that advanced morphology scope and sequence and those units as they are ready. If you have any comments or questions, you can email support@readingrev.com.